Welcome to Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And welcome to another episode. Okay, so in the last video, I mentioned that I wanted to explore the changes that have been made, specifically around the, you may remember that I did a video a few videos back, which was how not to compromise. Or should it have been called How to Compromise? I was unsure really whether to call it How Not to Compromise or How to Compromise, but I didn't really want to put too much emphasis really on the CVE that's been created by Microsoft about the whole ESX admins group, which is there by default since about 5.1 on adding your ESXi servers to AD, which I think we would all agree is probably a bad thing to do. And in this particular video, I'll put a link to this in the description. I actually used my ESXi Fling 7.0 hosts because they're not patched. And that's specifically why I'd use those in the video and not the ESXi servers that we're using in the EE lab. But then I thought to myself, okay, let's have a little look at, because these are actually basically running 8.03, the build that the changes have actually been made in already. So I thought to myself, okay, well, let's add these to Active Directory and see what happens. Let's see whether or not that the flaw still exists. I'm hoping that Broadcom have definitely fixed the problem. And then we can actually basically have a little look at the changes that have been made by Broadcom/VMware to negate this particular CVE. And I've actually made some changes to one of the ESXi hosts, effectively to make it vulnerable or to compromise it when we do add it to AD. So we can actually basically see what particular value is causing it really to be vulnerable. Okay, so I've got a couple of SSH sessions to our hosts, but I'm going to go back to our EE Lab AD, and you may remember that I have this account here that the threat actors created called A Hacker, and I've got one down here called EE Hacker, and of course I've got the famous ESX admins group. And of course, the members of that group are A Hacker and EE Hacker. And if you cast your mind back to that particular video, this whole CVE is based on the premise that if you add an ESXi host, because you've got root access to the ESXi host, you add it to a domain and you've got an account which has the ability to add that host to the domain. By default, if you've got a group called ESX admins, then they will automatically be added or given permission to your ESXi host. And we can check that very simply by using a command, which I'm going to run on our hosts. So this is ESXi 001. So this is stock, no changes. And if I actually basically run the ESXCLI system permission list, you can basically see that the only roles that have been given full access rights and admin are DCUI, root, and VPX user. And that has been added to AD. So, you know, if I try to log in, let's just remember here, I'm sure I've done it before. Okay. So if I actually basically use SSH here to log in as hacker@ee-lab.com, which is our account that exists in AD here that we created, our hacker account. And we try to log into ESXi001.sars.consultant.uk. Okay, that's asking me for the AD password. And I'm basically going to get connection closed. And I'm hoping that you can actually basically see that the reason why is that we've got no AD group that's been added into our ESXi server. Now, if we actually have a little look, just looking to see where my vCenter server. So if I actually basically have a little look at the configuration, and we have a little look specifically at the advanced system settings. And the advanced system settings, now this is I'm going to have to ask this question, I think. I think I'm going to ask some VMware vExperts about this, because I'll look at this knowledge base article here by Broadcom that explains the issues. The issue is fixed in ESXi 8.03, and it actually basically says that the ESXi group has been changed from ESXadmins to null. Well, if I actually basically have a little look here, I can still see that that's not been changed to null. So that's a bit of a question. But more importantly, this here, which effectively is the ESXi admins group auto add, is set to false. That actually basically prevents, if you do want to add your ESXi host to AD, that's the variable that would automatically create the ESXi admins group to have admin access or root access to your host. So I'm a little bit surprised that that's not null. There's another auth validation interval there, changed from 1440 to 90. But the true to false definitely has been changed here. And that's why QED on ESXi 001, we can't actually basically log in with our hacker account. And even if I try, I created one called EE account. I think it was EE account. Let's just go back to AD. EE hacker. Yeah, EE hacker. So we can try the same thing with our other account. So EE hacker. And we'll try and log in with that one. And we can't log in. So there's no vulnerability. ESXi 001 is not compromised if it had been added to Active Directory. I still don't recommend adding your ESXi host to Active Directory, and that's why I've actually basically specifically not covered it in this particular video. So let's have a little look at ESXi 002, and if we do exactly the same thing with ESXi 002, so if I run the permission list, so you can clearly see there that EE-lab /ESXadmins is a group, it's true, and its role is admin, so that one's definitely been added to the host. And the reason that's been added to the host was because I deliberately tinkered or fettled with the advanced settings, which have been changed now by default. So you can see there that the config.hostagent plugins host svc.esxadmins auto add. So the bad function of auto adding the group to permissions of your host, I've changed to true, so that it would basically add that group to our configuration. And now, if I tell you what I'll do, I'll go back to our ESXi host here. So if I actually basically now go back to our hacker account, and I actually basically use so do an SSH hacker at ELAB to ESXi 002, it's going to fail. Now, I think that's probably because I've been messing around with DNSs to get it to join this AD, and that's not resolved. So let's just actually basically go back and try that on the host itself. So anyway, so SSH hacker at elab.com, ESXi 002, okay, and that's login with the AD account, which is challenging me, and there you go. You can actually basically see that the account has changed, EE-lab hacker at ESXi 002. And that's because of this particular variable here. So update to 8.03 or ESXi 8.03. And if you really want to check if you are currently added to Active Directory, then just actually basically use that ESXi permission list to actually basically check your permissions. So really short one, 10 minutes or so. So again, thanks so much for watching. Come back soon, and goodbye.